Hi, guys. Welcome back to Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the work of writer director J.J. Abrams, as well as his greater Bad Robot universe. I'm your host for this time around. My name is Marcelo Inostroza, joined as always by my fellow co host, Matt Crandall. And on today's edition of the show, we will continue to make our way through Alcatraz Season 1. On today's show, we'll be talking about Episode 7, entitled Johnny McKee. So, with that all out of the way and being said, Matt, I have a question for you. Would you like a drink?
Nope. I'm going to take a hard pass, and I ain't going for a swim either, because Johnny McKee is a guy who loves to work his way into like a menial job, and then he finds a way to do some serious damage by murdering as many people as he can with weird chemicals, or as we find out, they think it might be Nightshade and they're trying to investigate. And the last two episodes of this show, I've been more positive as we got the episode about the guard that had some good guest stars. Last week, we had, Paxton Petty blowing people up, but it was more rooted in Hauser and the team. And then this feels like it's with those early batch of episodes where we spent so much time in the backstory of the villain of the week in the flashbacks to, 63 Alcatraz, that I'm like, oh, guys, you were on the right path, and now you've diverted back to where you were, and I just don't know why they did it. This does have some good banter with Soto and Madsen, and I felt like Hauser was a little bit more involved, but every time we cut to a flashback, I was like, ugh, like, I don't care. And then we spent a lot of time with Johnny McKee when he's waiting to get the interviews for his jobs and all this stuff, and I'm just like, guys, this was not the formula that I thought we had settled on after last week, where we finally seemed like, oh, we're getting to know what people want, the mystery, the characters, less of the unserialized stuff. But then this felt like it blew us back a few steps. How did you feel for this episode?
I couldn't be more in agreement with you when it came to this episode, because I feel that for some reason, like you intimated, the writers made so many steps forward in the storytelling with last week's episode, but in this episode, they sort of fell back into old behaviors, and they fell back into the old behavior saying we have to justify the horrible behavior that these villains that are coming back from 1963. Like we have to justify their awful behavior, and we have to show to the audience that these people were just normal, good people until they got corrupted. And guess what? I don't care. I care about Hauser, I care about Soto, and I care about Rebecca. So just keep it focused on them hunting down these 63s and unraveling the bigger mystery of the show. But this episode just felt like a stick in the mud. This episode felt like they took 2 steps back from what they gained last week. It drove me fucking mad. And another thing, in earlier episodes of this show, every a prisoner that came back from 63 had some connection to the bigger plot. And recently, well, let's take out last week's episode just for a minute. But if we take out last week's episode, the prisoners that the team has been dealing with has no connection to the grander mystery of the show. The only thing that they keep bringing up is the blood, but they don't even fucking explain that. How can the writers expect the audience to be still invested at this point if they keep putting out this dribble? Like, listen, I gave them so much credit last week, but with this episode, I take that credit back.
There is a few things that they do right, few and far between, but when we ended last week, Hauser brought Lucy to Beauregard and said, use her methods to bring her back. And so in this episode, he does check in, and Beauregard's like, yeah, man, I don't know what her fucking methods were. Like, I've already done this and this and this that she would have done, and like, none of it's working. So that was kind of a surprise to me and a little bit frustrating that, like, I thought when he said, you know, wake her up, I thought we were going to have her waking up by the end of this episode. But Beauregard's like, I got no idea, man. I don't know what she's been doing. I haven't been paying attention. And I'm like, oh, God, that sucks. And then, you know, there's a moment where they need some information, and I was about to just say Hurley, but, you know, Jorge Garcia's character is like, oh, we got to go talk to the coroner, the hot girl. I guess I could do it. And you're like, okay, but that scene really doesn't go anywhere either. But the moment where I thought we were going to get some real juice going is he's like, oh, Johnny McKee, cell 143. That is right across from 142, Jack Sylvain. And so Rebecca is like, well, Jack Sylvain, well, we can get some information from this guy. Isn't he been sent to a prison, Hauser? Can we visit him in whatever prison he is in? And of course, I'm thinking, finally, Hauser's going to have to come clean. He's going to tell her the truth. They're going to go to his secret Alcatraz, but fucking no. He's like, oh, I'll arrange it. Just give me some time and then we'll meet. And so then they have a neutral meeting at a neutral site, and she doesn't find out what Hauser's actually up to, even though, like, we're waiting for this. We need Madsen to be brought fully into the fold, because us as the audience need to be brought fully into the fold of whatever the hell Hauser is doing here. So we need Lucy to wake up. We need Hauser to come clean. We need to know what's going on at this site. But so Jack Sylvain doesn't really have much to offer. He gives us a few tidbits about McKee and, you know, his penchant for poisoning people in weird ways. And there is a interesting moment where, you know, Madsen asks about her grandfather. And then as Sylvain's leaving, he's like, oh yeah, you must be related because I can see you got his eyes. And again, like, we just want a little bit more to bring us in. And they keep holding us at arm's length. But that scene, at least, I felt like was one of the highlights of the episode, where we're getting a little bit more about, you know, Rebecca's grandfather, what was going on with him at Alcatraz, but just glimpses, short flashes, not any real juice.
I do agree with you. It was really, really, really fun seeing Jack Sylvain back in the fray again. But the really, really frustrating thing to me is that when Rebecca asked to see Jack Sylvain again, the fact that the fact that Hauser is still keeping what he's actually doing here at arm's length from Rebecca and from Soto is driving me up a fucking wall. The fact that Rebecca went along with meeting Jack Sylvain at a neutral site and didn't actually press Hauser on what the fuck he's doing, like this is ridiculous. I don't know what she's doing, because by the time that she comes around to actually being brave enough to ask Hauser, no, I'm not going to do another fucking thing for you, or I'm not going to do anything until you give me some concrete answers here. She might not be able to. And then Hauser's off the hook, and then he can do whatever the fuck he wants. But I don't understand what is taking her, or Soto for that matter, so fucking long to ask. Because all they gotta do is ask. And like Rebecca said previously, in weeks past, Hauser needs her more than she needs him. So if she would leverage her participation, Hauser would have no place to go. He would have to open up.
Yeah, it's we as the audience know that, and like, I'm kind of surprised that Rebecca hasn't realized that, right? And so it's making her look stupid because she's just letting Hauser continue to walk all over them and hold his secrets. And as we learn more about like what McKee is up to, I don't care that much. I did think, seeing all the dead bodies in the pool was kind of cool. But then by the time he's doing his whole subway thing, I'm like, okay, let's just wrap this guy up. I don't care about this. I know that he's not going to kill 800 people on the subway. I know they're going to be able to track him somehow. I know they're going to get there just in time. And then of course he gets to ride the third rail, which was kind of fun to watch him get electrocuted, but they tried to get us to care about this weird incident from his past, where two incidents. One, the photo of the woman that had the horrendous burns, and this being part of something that sent him to Alcatraz because he threw acid at her and we don't know why. And then the murder at the movies, is supposed to be like another big moment. But again, just watching the flashbacks, like I couldn't have cared less about him roping that other guy in by telling him like, hey man, I'm trading you a dirty magazine for this stuff. And this movie's got some cans in it. You got to come see them. They just need to find a better way if we're going to spend so much time in the flashbacks to keep me interested in them.
Here's an idea. Minimize the flashbacks to minimize the flashbacks to exactly what you need and forget everything else. And why not do this? Instead of giving us copious amounts of flashbacks, actually put us with the main characters. Put us with Rebecca. Put us with Soto. Put us with Hauser. Put the audience with them and have the audience with them every step of the way as they try and solve the case of the week, as they try and catch the prisoner of the week. Look, I didn't care when we finally found out why McHugh became a murderous person, because this pretty girl in high school, kissed him and then, got him all excited, and then he was revealed to the entire football team in the entire school, and they threw fucking firecrackers at his nether regions and blew up, and because of that he lost one of his balls. That is a demoralizing moment, but that's not enough to throw acid at a woman's face. Like, come on, that's a little excessive, don't you think?
Well, I've never had my nuts blown off by a cherry bomb, so I'm not sure. But it comes at a point where, like, am I supposed to feel bad for this guy because of this public humiliation? It's too late.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like the girl would be the target of your anger. I feel like the football team should be the target of your anger. Right? Like, the girl obviously did a bad thing, but that just seemed like, they came up with this in the writer's room and thought it would be something we would care about, or like we would be shocked by, this guy was traumatized and had his nuts blown off, and then he did, but like, I was just like, next, wake Lucy up, get her up, get Jack Sylvain back, get everybody explaining everything, because we're losing daylight here and I have no fucking idea what this show is about.
Listen, are you surprised that we haven't seen Rebecca's grandfather at all? He keeps popping up in these episodes. Sometimes he shows up, or sometimes he's a guy behind a screen talking to another character that we happen to be dealing with in present day. But are you surprised that the writers haven't put him in more?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, like, okay, Rebecca knows that her grandfather is back. We know that Uncle Ray is actually her uncle. Like, so, like, all this stuff that I'm like, where are these two fucking guys who now we should be more forward with using them, because, Ray had a bigger part a few weeks ago. So did Tommy. But if they're only going to pop up every 4 episodes, that's going to be really annoying. That's going to be really annoying because I think even Hauser should be like, we got to dig into this Tommy thing more because that's why Madsen is even there. And for them to just back burner that again was making me really, really pissed. And just thinking like, I bet by the time we're done this 13 episode run, we're going to realize that there was probably a really good 7 episode show and they just had to inflate it to 13 episodes. I wonder.
I mean,
this was back in the day when they inflated shows had filler episodes because they had to, right? There was so many. But this again was a 13 episode thing that they didn't pick up a back 9. It just got canned. So like, were they intentionally saving all the good shit for the back 9 that they never got?
Right. I mean, do you think in the next couple of weeks we're going to go back into that sub basement in Alcatraz and we're going to find out what is in that room? Because you do remember that weeks ago, one of the villains of the week was thrown in there, and the warden, before he threw him in there, he said, "Son, what's behind this door will give you some answers, or what's behind this door will open up your world in ways that you couldn't imagine." So, do you think that we're going to be taken back to that sub basement in Alcatraz and we're finally going to be told what's behind that door? Probably not, but I'm just saying.
I feel like we have to get something, especially knowing, when this was running, they had to feel like they had to build up to something that would hook people so they could get more episodes. So I'm assuming we're going to get some answers soon. I'm hoping much sooner than later, but I really, I'm confounded a little bit by the pace and the so many cool things established that we just keep brushing past. But I feel like we're going to have to revisit some of those ideas soon.
Yeah, I mean, look, this show has all the right ingredients to be a Bad Robot top tier show, but it feels like the writers who are cooking the show aren't cooking the ingredients the right way. And I also find it really interesting. What you said a couple minutes ago. Maybe if the show was cut in half, and maybe if the show was given 7 or 8 episodes, maybe those 7 or 8 episodes would be the vegetables and the ice cream all together. But instead, the meal that we're getting is just the vegetables, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's a plate of, I don't know, zucchini or something that you're just like, what? This beets and zucchini, and I'm like, no, please don't. But I just think that hindsight is just 2020, and again, this show is a remnant from like that weird time, the past, right? 2012, where like we're still, network TV is still rocking, streaming hasn't completely changed the game yet, but like some of those shows you watch back and you're like, oh, I love the leisurely pace of network TV when they had so many episodes. And then other ones you're like, fuck, if this was on Netflix now, half of these episodes wouldn't exist because they would realize they didn't need them. So it's just, it's just a really awkward year that this came out because it was right before everything really avalanched and changed.
Yeah, and this was, I think that I think that we discussed this in weeks past. This was the last Bad Robot show that sort of had that classic TV model, right? After this, the only Bad Robot show that I can remember that really took off during the streaming era and during like the Prime TV era was a show called, Westworld, that Matt and I will cover on the show at some point in the future when we feel like driving a drill through our brains.
Well, yeah, and Westworld is kind of an exception because HBO has always done their own thing, and they've always
Right.
been shorter seasons, tighter stories, better characters, but that's because they don't have any shackles on the creators. This was the last
Right.
show that, like, I really remember the marketing push of, like, from the co-creator of Lost and Fringe, right? Where, like, JJ's name was front and center to draw people in to watch the show. And this is one of those last ones, because even something like, you know, if Almost Human or whatever happened a year after this or whenever it was, they didn't hit it as hard. That was like from producers of Fringe, right? This was like fucking JJ's name was like front and center. And it was like, if you like Lost and Fringe, this is your new favorite show. And, you know, as we know, it wasn't, but it's just interesting to watch these back now, knowing that if it was marketed today, it would be totally different and it would be launched totally different. Even though as we're recording, we are in an age where some streaming is starting to reflect old network TV models, and that's actually serving them well, but those are few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what is to come in the weeks ahead. I mean, I do know one thing that's just gonna throw me off a cliff again, just like it did back then. But this one thing isn't going to destroy my enjoyment of the episodes that come before it. But I'm interested, as someone who doesn't necessarily know where we're going to end up, what if any hope do you have left for the show with the episodes that we have remaining here?
I do have some hope, and most of that is just, you know, I feel like they were trying to bait a hook for their mid-season to maybe get picked up for more. So, like, I feel like they gotta really move the ball forward by the time we're done 13. Because this show is leaning more into the serialization than Undercovers did. So, like, the fact that Undercovers just wrapped and was just another episode of Undercovers, basically, isn't that shocking. But, like, if this one doesn't give us a few revelations that make me sad that it got canceled, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, listen. I do feel that I do want to go against you a little bit. This show doesn't have as much doesn't have as much outgoing charm to me as the Undercovers did, because the Undercovers had two dynamite leads, and the Undercovers had that alias thing to it. And this show is trying to be Lost and Fringe put together in like a whole stew, and they're not cooking it right. Like I previously said, and like we have intimated in weeks past. So going forward here, the only thing that I would like from the show is I would like them to fucking finally just find a way to focus the stories that you have left to tell, and please, for the love of God, put the mystery first. Put your grander mystery first, and just lose the idea of trying to justify the behaviors of these evil villains that keep coming back. Just stop trying to do it, because I guarantee you half of the audience doesn't fucking care.
Right, and put the story first, or at least give Jorge Garcia something to fucking do. Like, even if he was just working at his comic book shop for an episode and, like, talking to all the kids there, it would be more entertaining than some of these.
Yeah. Here's an idea. Why not focus an episode around Lucy, the girl in the coma? Why not do that?
Yeah, and wake her up from the coma by the time that episode is done, because I'm sick of it.
Yeah. There you go. There are so many things that the writers could do here to make the last episodes that we have remaining on the show interesting and intriguing. So by the time that we get to the end, and by the time that we get to the heartbreaking moment again, which I will not reveal here, but we'll actually feel it, and we'll actually care that this show didn't have a back nine, or this show didn't have a second season at all to speak of. But I just feel that they're not going to give us that, I just feel that the ending of this show is going to be, oh God, it's going to be a gut punch again.
We'll see. We're getting closer.
It's going to be a gut punch. But with that, guys, I think that'll do it for this edition of Radio 815. Listen, guys, if you are a big fan of ours and you want to send us comments or questions, we do have an email. It's radio815@aol.com. If you want to listen to back episodes, you can find us on any podcast service on the planet, and you can find us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/radio815. But Matt, if for anyone who's listening to this episode right now, if they want to log some movies with you, where can they go and do that?
We can log movies on letterboxd.com/MDC3000.
All right, that's great. And guys, if you want to find me and chat with me about anything Bad Robot, you can find me on Letterboxd, or you can find me on Letterboxd or X at Creek Fanatic 88. But until next time, thank you so much for listening. And as I say often, we'll talk back soon.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.